We are live.
Welcome, guys, to Patreon Live. We're getting ready to send the link. So when we do the recording, the final video, this will be part of it. And we have some pretty cool things to talk about tonight. And so we're going to get the link over. And it's just a little strange how we have to do it. YouTube does not give us a link until right at the last, in fact, when we go live, which makes it a little strange. So we're going to have the link ready to go for you guys. And, comment in the live. Well, if you're watching now, you're going to comment on the Patreon video itself. I'll try to check the other, but we're getting ready. So we're all set.
Yep, just waiting on people to get here.
Okay, so if you've got the link and you've clicked on it, go ahead and just say hello. We'd love to know that you're out there. We do see actually numbers start to pop in, but as soon as you do, please just say hello. And we'd love to.
Yep, got some people.
Yeah, we got some people already started. So I guess first thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is Father's Day. We just had Father's Day. And really, we had Mother's Day. And, it's funny because we really put a lot of energy into Mother's Day because mothers are very nurturing. They take care of the children. And what's sad is that's not even politically correct today. So fathers, if you're a father, a grandfather, an uncle, you have kids that that you have some kind of influence on in your life. Make sure that you invest that time. Be a really good father and father figure. Just be a good dad because there's so many deadbeat dads out there. And so, be the best you can be because we are raising this next generation. And so as we just had Father's Day, it's just great to kind of just refresh and remember that you do have an influence. And it's an important something that we are missing here in our nation and for that matter around the world. So if you guys start popping in, we're just going to talk. We're going to talk about a couple of things tonight. And first thing that I want to really talk about is something that we have already addressed in a video, but I think this is a great way to be able to get some feedback from you guys, is the 5 top guns that you need to have in an SHTF situation. Now, a lot of guys have just their go-to rifle, whether it's the AR-15, which, by the way, we have checked all these, but the AR-15, that seems to be one of the rifles that a lot of people use as their go-to rifle. And, of course, the military uses it. There's a lot of great reasons to go with an AR, but also, the AK-47 is another great choice. And these have been used in combat for, 50, 60, whatever years. Well, since 1947. And so definitely a very proven design. And so a lot of times we get focused on those and we don't really think about other firearms that are needed. And, it was really funny, but when we started a prepper group a few years ago, a lot of people had handguns and they might have had a shotgun typically. But one of the things that, I really kind of impressed upon everybody is that, those are very low range firearms. I mean, they only get out, with a pistol about 50 yards. You can hit targets at 100 if you're really lucky. But as far as being effective, 50 yards is about as much as you're going to do. With a shotgun, 50, 75 yards, unless you have slugs, and you're only getting out to 100 yards. And somebody can get at a distance and pin you down, pin your family down. We're not talking about necessarily zombie apocalypse into the world. We could be talking about a civil unrest. We could be talking about martial law or, an environmental crisis. I mean, there are a lot of things to really consider. So you may say, well, I'm not really into all that kind of stuff. But guys, it's smart just to at least, you don't have to make it into a lifestyle. And that's one of the reasons why we call it Sensible Prepper on my Sensible Prepper channel. It's really saying, hey, you know what? You need some things. Now, if you want to go all the way, we do that too. But the big thing that I try to focus on is to get people to think, just to think about basic survival. And so those are really the handgun. What I love about the handgun in particular is that in any situation, I can tuck this away, I can hide it, and yet I have personal self-defense. And so, if I'm having to leave an area and there are people around and I really can't be dragging out a rifle, you can always tuck a pistol somewhere. It's very concealable. especially with a lot of the extended magazines. You can really be pretty much outfitted. But again, the big problem with a handgun is that it's limited. It's limited to its range. And it's why the U.S. military really uses this just as a sidearm, as a personal defense weapon, not necessarily for a combat piece. And I mean, it can be used for that, but it's something, to think about. But this is your personal defense firearm. And then, of course, secondly, a lot of people have shotguns already. They have shotguns in their homes. A lot of people depend on a good 12-gauge shotgun or 20-gauge or 410 for that matter for their home. One of the things, though, about a shotgun is that it's definitely something that you can use for hunting, but it's also something that is very effective in a home defense situation. Much more effective, really, than a rifle even. And, you're not really worried about going 200 or 300 yards, with when you're firing your firearm and going into 2 or 3 different houses, especially in an urban situation. Shotgun is really, in fact, if you look at any of the SWAT teams, any of the entry teams with the U.S. military, somebody's got a shotgun. And they're guys with standard AR-15s or M4s, but they're guys with shotguns, at least one guy. And then, of course, which leads us to the next point, is that you need something possibly that'll get really on out to distance. Now, with an AR-15, you can get 600, 700, 800 yards. It starts to lose its effectiveness when it gets out past that in 5.56. There are some other options, though, that bump that up. But one thing that is on the list is not only your go-to, this is your primary, is also something like this M14 up here from James River Armory. You have the capability to get really distance. Having a nice scope, having, any hunting rifle really with a nice scope, it gives you that advantage in case you need to have some precision shooting. And then, of course, number 5 is a 22 rimfire. Now, for me, as far as my go-to for that kind of situation, I like something sturdy. There's a lot of 22 rifles out there, or pistols, that is, that are just, made of aluminum. They're little blowbacks. They're very lightweight. They're fun to take to the range. But in a real grid down type situation, having a good 22, less report, you can hand this to someone that doesn't have a lot of experience with firearms. But also, if you're out in the countryside or in a rural area, this can be great for hunting. But not only the pistol, it also interchanges with a rifle. And so, having a 22 rifle is definitely something that, to me, is it's a no-brainer. One of the things, though, that is really important to do, though, is to take care of your family and having something for them to be able to defend themselves. I've told this story before, but it bears repeating, especially right now. There was actually, it was one of our cousins. It was an extended family member. And he and his wife, they were elderly. Middle of the night, somebody tried to break into their house. The man went to the door with a 12-gauge shotgun. He confronted the guy. The guy still came through the door. He ended up fighting the guy. And finally, he subdued him. And his wife had called 911. They came, picked up the guy. And then as soon as they left, he had a heart attack. And so they ran him to the hospital. He survived. But here's the thing. His wife was back in her bedroom with no firearm, with no way to defend herself. If it had just been a couple of minutes longer, or just the guy had just overtaken the guy. But that's the kind of situation, it's definitely important for them to have a way to defend themselves. So I hear a lot of times guys say, well, I've got my AR, I've got my gun, but have they taken care of their family? And so just some things to kind of think about, guys, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is because I want you to be prepared. I'm going to tell you, when I do a video, especially on the Sensible Prepper channel, and it's about bug out bags, or it's about some kind of different survival technique or something, I always have someone to send me a private message, and said, I watched your video, I decided to do it, and then a tornado hit and I had the bag, or, we had a flood and I was able to use it, or we had to evacuate, or, I was able to do whatever. I just happened to have those items. So, while not all of us face those situations, guys, the chance that you're going to face some kind of survival situation is not super remote. I mean, there's a good chance. And that's just everyday life. That is what I like to call my personal SHTF. All the kids, they have bags. And we talked a little bit about this before, but all the kids have bags in their vehicles. My wife has a bag in her vehicle, and just the essentials. really we call it a get home bag. Excuse me, more than a bug out bag. Excuse me. I think I've got something caught in my throat. But, those are the 5 essentials. So the first is some sort of handgun. It can be a revolver as well. Whatever you really feel good about having, something you conceal, something that you've really trained with. And then a good 12 gauge shotgun. I mean, again, it is the ultimate in home defense, but there are times, especially in a situation, a civil unrest situation, where a shotgun may be the tool that you need. And that's the tool that is best suited. And then you have your AR or your AK, what I like to call my go-to rifles, something that I really go to. And then definitely some kind of 22 for hunting, for, just it's cheap training. It's low report, low recoil, and it's just great. And you can really stock up on a lot of ammunition. And then last, to me, that could actually be filled with your AR more than your AK is more of a long range type firearm to really be able, so you're not pinned down. So you're not, you can at least go toe to toe. And the funny thing was with this prepper group, I took them out. This is when Mosin and the Gants were still about, I think they were still about $100 at this time. And each person that did not have a long range option bought one. And then they ended up buying an AR, and then they ended up doing other things. But, it really kind of fills those little gaps. So it's really just 5 firearms. But those are the top that I think we need to take a look at. Now, I think we have some questions, which I want. And if you have questions, that's really why we're here. We're going to fill in with some topic stuff we're talking about. So,
all right, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
Ask, I know you were really liking the Taurus TX22. Will you review it? I bought one, love it, and I think I'm going to buy another one because I want to have it along with my AR-7 in my get home bag.
I love the AR-7. That is in fact, for a survival rifle, that is an excellent for whatever you're doing. I mean, it's easy to tuck away. It's easy to make into a small package. And I'm glad that your internet's working. I know that you had some concerns. The TX22, I did a review on it, and we'll have it linked or whatever. You can go to the search little icon on the Suits channel, and I have it on there. We had a great time with that pistol. I highly recommend it. I think it's so lightweight. It's so easy to take. It's got the extended the magazine capacity is well extended over your 10 rounds, and it's just a good solid option. I think Taurus really hit the ball or hit it out of the ballpark with that one. And so I've been very pleased with it. I think I talked to one guy, I believe it's Mr. Guns and Gear. He said he had a couple of issues with his, but we did not have any. I mean, we shot, and you really enjoyed shooting that one, I know.
Yes.
And you could just pop, 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 pop. I mean, that thing would just run like a sewing machine. So I think that's a great choice. Definitely, yes.
Master Herbie asks,
Hey,
do
Herbie.
you recommend some family style training and firearm certification?
I really highly recommend that. The big problem is a lot of times is finding something that could be family friendly. But I think that there are a lot of options that have come up. A lot of guys that, served in the military that have a lot of extensive training kind of started some different educational classes out there. In fact, I know when we get around to it, which I'd really love to do this sooner than later, is to take these guys. James Yeager told me, he said, I want you to bring your family out. I want to come out. I just want to do a training thing. And, but so that is when he's a friend of mine. So, I really want to do that, and we need to plan it. It's about, 6, 7 hours away, which, would be fun just to go out and do. But yes, I highly recommend that. I remember this one girl, we were doing a lot of stuff. There's a local school that was here called the South Carolina Gun School. In fact, I did a lot of videos early on where we were doing training and defensive training classes. Those things were awesome. And there was one girl from our church that came out to that. She had very little experience with firearms. I mean, she'd go to the range, and just shoot, but she didn't really have a lot of experience. And when she left, I mean, she was like just blown away by how much she really got from those classes. And I watched her from the moment she started until she ended. It was really a huge, vast improvement. So, you have a little stress involved. So you really work on your weapons manipulations. One thing that they would do is to insert dummy rounds and you were supposed to do it yourself every like so many rounds, like a couple in a magazine or one here and there. So when you were shooting, you induced your own malfunction. And so, the tap rack and, I mean, it was just a great experience. And in fact, I went to that same class like 10 times. And it was funny because he had changed it around just a little bit. But I told him, I said, I'm just learning every time I come. So, yes, I think it's a great way to get your family involved. But, you want to kind of find one that's tailored a little bit to the not so super tactical, which, what I find is, though, is guys, a lot of times you go to these classes and 75% of the guys are just basic, good people that just want to improve. They're not, military vets or, they're just good. They're just good guys. Now, when you get some of these bigger names, yes, you're going to start to get more of your, the tactical guys that are coming in. And, they're great to have. They're glad to have you. But, something like Front Sight or Thunder Ranch or something like that, that would also be a great option. So, yes, I definitely highly recommend it.
Enigma asks, what is
Hey,
your
man.
personal go-to war with the jihadists Antifa have showed up in your neighborhood to destroy everything rifle weapon?
My BCM Recce. I have the BC. I've had it for a long time. It's actually got it's the bronze. It's burnt bronze. It is. I love that rifle. It's just my go-to. But I think actually in my bag, in my vehicle bag, which I have, and I keep a rifle with one of the Laws Tactical folding stocks. I believe it is also BCM, but it's not a Recce. I really like BCM. I really think a lot of Paul Bufani, and so that is my go-to rifle as far as if I'm thinking this is what I want to grab. But I have a number of different ones, but that's definitely my go-to. But right now there's a lot of great options, and honestly, a good Palmetto State AR-15. We had that one. We've got the one that has just the plain Jane. It was like $369. It's all mil spec. I mean, the quality of that rifle is excellent, and we have shot it over and over and over, and for scopes, for magazine, just doing all kind of stuff with it, and we have not had any issues. We've shot thousands of rounds through it. So they're just right now is, again, I say this a lot, but it's the golden age of firearms right now. And there's a lot of good quality. I was on Instagram, and I think it was Manticore Arms. They posted a picture where I was shooting the CZ Evo 3 Micro. And it was one of these, I've been doing these little kind of quick range reviews where I'll just talk about it a second, shoot it, and I just put them on Facebook. And the guy said, "Oh, that'd be good, but Such is, bought and paid for, and blah, blah, blah." And I told the guy, I actually replied to him. I said, number one, I paid for the gun. Number two, YouTube will demonetize that video. So I don't really know why I'm doing this review, especially with, with comments like yours. But, it's, you need to be, I don't know where I'm going with that. I don't like bringing that up all the time.
You were talking about Manticore Arms.
Thank you. But, Manticore Arms, I mean, well, they're a great company. I mean, they're just good to deal with, but I still don't really know where I'm going. So anyway, there's a lot of great guns out there that have good quality. Watch feedback, watch things like that to see. And a lot of times you'll find out, because here's the problem. I get a gun and it's an example of one. It's a sample of one. I do the review. I'm going to tell you if I'm having issues. You've got somebody else that gets a gun and they have issues, and then they make the biggest deal about it. In fact, I know reviewers right now. There are some that, supposedly bought and paid for, but there are some out there that are looking for problems with firearms. And even when the company contacts them and says, "Hey, we want to fix it," they refuse, because that's how they build their deal. So be careful who you're listening to. That includes me. I always tell people, watch this review. This is my experience. Before you make a purchase, look at other reviews. And what that does is, be quiet, Lance. That keeps, Lance is right here. And somebody must be pulling up. But anyway, it just makes it well-rounded. So there we go. I think I over-answered that question.
Chase Kelly asks, have you
Chase.
seen or tried the short Midwest rail on a 1022 Charger takedown?
No, I haven't. In fact, I've really been looking at the Charger. I just think that's a really cool little system, and it's really small. And you guys know I'm a big 1022 fan, but might be something that I look at coming up. I just did the Midwest Industries rail for the PC9 carbine, and there's a lot of cool accessories. And also did, in fact, I did the actual installation on GetZone, and I just demonetized the video on YouTube because I knew they were going to demonetize it anyway. But to do the parts build, I had to go to GetZone. So if you guys, man, if you want to see some different things where we just cannot show on YouTube, GetZone is hosting them, and it's just awesome.
The Bug Killer asks, do you think a pistol caliber carbine combo could work in this situation?
Yes, but I think it's limited because you have limited range. But one of the things that I love about a pistol caliber carbine is, let's say I have, and really to me the optimum is a Glock pistol and then Glock magazines in your pistol caliber carbine. I mean, just is, because they're just so plentiful. There're just so many out there. So that's one of the things that I feel like is kind of a good pairing. But the one thing about a pistol caliber carbine is that, you can get out to 100, 150, even 200 yards. So it's going to give you an extended range, especially in, let's say, an urban situation. In a rural situation where you might have, 500, 600 yards, you're going to be limited. But if you live like we do here in the Southeast, I mean, the forests are so thick, and there's not really a lot of places, that you're necessarily going to have those ranges. So I think it could work, and especially something like, because they're so compact and makes it easy. Okay.
We don't have any more questions, but Paul says, for family-friendly training, attend a Project Appleseed.
Well, yeah. That's a great family-friendly outlet. And the Appleseed Project has done a lot of great things for a number of years. And in fact, we kind of were thinking about doing some stuff with them. And I don't, sometimes I get so busy, I lose track. But yes, thank you for putting that in there. I know that some of you guys last week were asking questions on the Patreon page. We are not looking at the Patreon page. So I just want to make sure you know that, because, in fact, one of my good friends, Dean, was actually posting stuff and was wondering why he didn't get an answer. And so he and I was able to get with him later on. And, but make sure, because I will try to go in and answer questions. But if we're not answering those questions right now, it's because we're looking at YouTube. So just FYI, which we're using YouTube. We're going to use YouTube as much as we can just to stick it to them. Okay. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about, my good buddy Jim got in. He left a comment the other day on a Patreon thing that I had done. And, he said the sad thing about major media right now is that they are out to destroy the American way of life. And it was funny. When I saw that, I just thought, I thought about it, I guess, but I haven't put it into those words. And guys, the traditions that make us Americans, the civility, being polite and helping one another, doing for others. We've always been a nation that if a country's in trouble or an area has been hit, funds go, we send people, we go and we give money and we do for those people. And it's been what's made America so strong. And when it comes to, our foundations here, which, there's a number of things that have been traditional foundations here in America, and we're losing them because the media is shaming those traditions out of existence. They're saying, oh, well, we need this, we need to do that. One of the things about America is that we put a lot of value on life. And, and I'm not necessarily talking about pro or I'm definitely pro-life, but I'm not really talking about that. Like if someone's injured, like if someone falls and they're lost, we'll send out 100 people to take care of them. They'll risk their lives. And, we put a lot of emphasis on going and risking our lives to help others. And we put a lot of value on that. And it just seems like that all of those traditional values, the home, and that's one of the things about Father's Day. One of the big problems that we have in this country is there's a lot of absentee fathers. They're just not around. And so I think that the assault on America is an assault on our traditional values. Gun ownership is a traditional value that has been sacred to all of us, and it is under constant attack. And here's the thing, guys, we are a people. What makes America? We have common goals, we have common things, we have freedoms that we have in common, and we have traditional values. And it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter, because freedom goes beyond that. The Constitution goes beyond race, creed, religion, all those things. And, I just feel like that the media is attacking that, and that there are a lot of groups that are joining in with them. And guys, I'm not saying we don't need to be accepting sometimes, because you know what, on a personal level, I accept people. But, as far as demonizing what I have believed, my core beliefs and what I'm passing down to my children is just wrong. And so we need to be, forward with what we believe. We need to stand firm. And that's what I believe. Aren't y'all glad? I won't charge any extra for that.
Yeah. Enigma asks, I've had some problem with Palmetto State Army Quality Control. Had to send my PA-10 back to them 3 times before it worked correctly. 2 different AK-9 Scorpion mags failed with bolt hole opens as well. Have you had any issues?
No, I have not. Palmetto State sent me some of their Scorpion mags for their AK, 9mm AK, to test out. And with the Evo 3 S2, the micro, we shot. We were shooting that thing just because we were having fun. And Sarah Mack was there, Seth was there, Robbie was there, and we're just like, we'll load the mags. Some of them are over there loading, the others are just shooting as fast as you can reload them. And I had no issues with it. And then as far as any of the Palmetto State, I just haven't. Now, here's the thing, and this is the bottom line. Of course, it sounds like there's been a lot of issues, and that would leave a bad taste in my mouth as well if I was having all those issues. But I have not, and it goes back to the sample of one. One great thing about Palmetto State is they do have a lifetime warranty on their stuff. So if you do have issues, you can definitely send it back, and they'll take care of it. Now, that's not really the optimum, is it? If you've got to be, especially in a grid down situation. For us, though, everything that we've dealt with so far. Now, I'll bring up an example right here, and we have the KS-47. This is their recent hybrid AR AK kind of rifle. And I know that Tim at Military Arms, when he first got one, there were some issues with it. There were just some. Well, if I can get this magazine in, we've shot this one, and there we go. We've shot this one quite a bit. We just did some initial testing. We haven't gone through our final testing, but I took it out of the range. We shot about 300 rounds through it. It functioned great. And the lower is more of a different style where it accepts AK mags. And then the upper receiver is an AR-15 upper receiver, but there are some differences. Once Tim had some issues, I think Palmetto State actually got in touch with him, and they did some design changes with these. So sometimes, and it doesn't matter what company it is, when they first put out something, there can be flaws that come to light when there's a lot of people out there using them. And that's one of the great things about YouTube is there are so many people using them. Here's the thing. If I got this and I take it out and I'm shooting it and I'm saying, man, this thing's perfect. This thing's awesome. This thing's wonderful. And then 10 other reviewers go, I have had nothing but problems. You need to really be careful and put it through its paces like you should. And so, it's just one of those things. So I don't really have any answers for you with the PSA. I just know that I've had a lot of great experience with them. And they did send me this. They sent me the Josiah McCullum. He got in touch. He said, hey, we'd really like for you to check this out. They're not paying me or anything, but they did send it. They said, hey, if you test it a lot, we'll let you keep it. And I was like, okay. But here's the thing. Let's say that this thing's having some problems. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't even. What's sad is when I have a problem with a gun, I can't even sell it to somebody because it has problems, and I'm not going to do that. So I get stuck with stuff like that. So to me, it's really important that it's just honest and true. And if it's running, it's running. So we've had some good success. So again, don't know what to exactly say. This is the solution, but I do know that that Palmetto State will take care of you in the long run. And I know those magazines are fairly new, so maybe there's something going on.
Nancy asks,
Hey, Nancy.
Master Herbie posed a scenario which is family security when the major protector is deployed or away for any reason. Do you have suggestions for short-term or long-term one-parent families?
Ooh, see that is scary to me. I mean, that's scary. I'll tell you one of the first things is to have a core group. And when I say that, it doesn't even have to be anything laid out. It doesn't have to be anything official. But this is the thing that is so important. I think we're really missing. Now, this is one of the American core values, I feel, is that before we could count on a neighbor. We knew our neighbors, we cared about them, we took care of them, we met, we were just neighborly. And I think now with the way electronics and all the things, we've become hermits. We're like a nation of hermits when it comes to the phone and TV and, all those things have pulled us inside. I've been reading Going Home again, and I'm on book 4. And, one of the premises of Going Home was this guy was in Tallahassee, Florida, which is on the panhandle of Florida, when an EMP hit. And he had to get home from there. And I believe it took him 2 weeks. And one of the things that he had set up, because he had a wife and 3 girls, and they did live out, but he had neighbors that took care of him. So the first thing I would say for you, especially anybody that's deployed, especially, but even if you're not, you could be across the country. I mean, Iran is really doing some crazy stuff right now. And, a dirty bomb, EMP, something like that. I mean, it's not inconceivable. Is to have backups, have family, and have, neighbors and friends. One of the things that Verfal said, who wrote the book about the Argentine collapse in 2001, is that the one way they survived the best was when they had communities and blocks to join together and to stay together and to make a solid unit. It made it very strong. So really, that's the best way. But also, let's go back to the training. If you do have a way to train, and take your family out and shoot. It's one of the things that, it's really important to do. And so those things, just doing what you can, because when it comes down to it, and then, after that, you need to pray a lot. So, but, we don't want to get to that. We want to be able to protect our family and do the praying too. Yes.
David M.N.
Hey,
says,
hey,
had to send back my vortex scope this week. Reticle is canted 40 degrees. Hope their warranty is as good as they say. Follow-up question. Any update on Dimitri at Primary Arms?
No, I've texted Dimitri back and forth some. I do have some lead soap that I've got coming up we're going to look at. I've had it for a while, but now it's kind of become a priority. And but I haven't heard. I did tell him, though, that we were praying for him. And so he was really encouraged by that. Dimitri is actually from a Greek ancestry. I believe his parents are from Greece, and he was born here in the U.S. But he is just such a great guy, very intelligent, and working right now with some reticles for the U.S. military, the Marines, and the Army. And they love his reticle systems. It's just very difficult to get in there. But, yeah, Dimitri's he's hanging in there. The doctors are giving him a lot of optimism, but he's got a lot of treatment to do. And one of the things which I thought was funny is the doctor told him to eat a lot of cilantro. I thought that was kind of strange. In fact, we've got cilantro growing in our garden right now, and I thought about that when my wife was talking about it. So, but yeah, Dimitri, he's hanging in there, but he's not really shooting. He's got other people shooting for him. And trying to make it through. But guys, again, protect yourself, especially if you're handling a lot of lead, if you're reloading, if you're messing around with steel targets, if you're doing that kind of stuff, take precautions, because, lead poisoning is definitely real and something we need to consider. We good?
Yeah, so far.
Okay, so again, the SHTF lineup is your regular handgun, and then a shotgun, which again, a lot of people have a shotgun, excellent home defense firearm. And then, your go-to, which, whether it's the AR-15 or the AK-47 or whatever, the Galil, I mean, there's a bazillion, the Tavor, I mean, there is a bazillion, and there are a lot. And, or a pistol caliber carbine. I mean, whatever your go-to is, if you get really good at it, that's the key. a good 22, whether it's a good pistol or a rifle. I mean, one thing about 22 is you can stock it up, especially if you have a suppressor. That'll really quieten things down. And great for game. Of course, the shotgun's great for game as well. And then the number 5 is kind of optional, maybe with your AR, is a long range option, 308. Those are the things to me. Now, see what happens is for me is for years, I would buy this and buy that. I didn't really have any kind of, I just bought whatever I could buy because I was just gun crazy. And so, anytime I'd get some cash, I'd run out and buy something. And there were holes, there were huge gaps in the firearms that I really needed to have. And so if you're going out and you're spending a lot of money on firearms, definitely make sure that you have those bases covered. Whether you're survival minded or not, those things can serve you no matter what. So just some, if you've got some things that you have for your lineup, for your setup, you can leave it down in the comments. One of the things I've always noticed is if you leave them, people like to read them. And, it's really a great way to be able to communicate back and forth and to be able to help other people. Maybe something that just clicks for somebody else. Yes.
Tech Intake asks, what would you suggest as a good starter AR-15? Should I go with something like a pre-built PSA, or is building a better idea?
I think if you're starting with an AR-15, if you've never really had a lot of experience, I would say to buy something. I'd say to buy a starter. I highly recommend the PSA. I know Enigma was just talking about some things, but the ones that we've had and all the experience I've had, PSA just seems to be good and solid. I mean, the bolts are shot peened, they're HPT and MPI tested, which means that it's magnetic particle testing. They go through and they do a bombardment of matter to be able, or these shot to be able to toughen the bolt. The bolt carriers, they're staked correctly, and they're using 7075 T6 aluminum on their upper and lower receivers. Their barrels are nitride finish and chrome moly vanadium. They're doing all the things to me that just make a good basic AR. And it makes you wonder why some people have these ARs that are, $3,000. What are the upgrades? But there are some. There are some out there. But honestly, to me, I think I would really recommend that you buy something first and then definitely build. And the one thing about building an AR is that if you have an AR as your go-to, building it will help you to be able to maintain that AR. And if you ever have any problems, you'll know how to fix it. And you do your upgrade. So it makes you very familiar. Yes.
Casper brother. Well, Peter here. I am in Connecticut and limited to 10 capacity mags. AR-15s are all illegal. Any replacements?
I'm going to tell you this, and this is something that's a little bit different, but I did a video a few years ago about states that had restrictions, such as Connecticut. And this was actually probably before Connecticut or right after Sandy Hook. A lever action rifle. A lever action rifle is fast. It's fast to reload. It's quick. Now it doesn't substitute a 10-round magazine because you can switch that magazine out pretty quickly if you have the magazines loaded already. So, but I know that there are a lot of restrictions with Connecticut. I don't know all the laws because the laws have changed. And I know even Connecticut has even increased some things over the past. It seems like once they get one thing, they go after others. Something that, of course, again, I don't know now. If you have an SKS, that is definitely a 10-round fixed box magazine. But, I don't know. That's it's one of those things that you have to just look around, see what is allowable. If AR-15s are not allowed in Connecticut, you're really going to be limited. That PC9 carbine, which, of course, you'd still be limited to 10 rounds. But, that's definitely a good option. But I kind of like a lever action actually a little better because you've got more extended range. I know it's a sad thing. What really irks me is that Americans are having to be subject to this kind of junk. I mean, that's what irks me more than anything. Yes.
It also just it makes me really, it's just retarded that you can just move to another state and all of a sudden it's legal again. That also is just
Yeah, I mean, you could move here to South Carolina and it'd be fine. Everything would be legal. And that's just it's sad. We're Americans.
Enigma asks,
Hey, man.
whatever happened with the Honor Guard handguns? You mentioned Sarah carried one before they started having all their issues and you took it away.
I did. Yes, I did. Okay, Honor Guard, they fixed their problem. And which, so many companies deal with stuff like that. And really the testing that goes into the SAMI specs. That was one of the things that Gary Ramey at Honor Guard was really upset about, is that they had it sent to be tested by SAMI specs and it passed all the tests. But SAMI specs doesn't include some other tests. And so when they got it, they were surprised, actually. And so they reinforced their triggers. They reinforced the series, that a stronger spring. I mean, in fact, we did a video on it where Gary came and took my Honor Guards. I have two, and went and did all the testing. But when it first happened, I mean, my video was it was huge. It was like 200,000, 250,000 views on it. And I told Gary, I said, which this is the thing, guys. I told Gary, I said, Gary, it's come to my attention. I said, I love you, man. He and I are just friends, and he'll come. We'll eat lunch sometimes because he's down in Gainesville, Georgia, which is not far from us. And I told him, I said, I've got to put this out. And he was in agreement. I mean, he agreed with me. I said, you've got to fix it though. I said, I want to give you a chance to go ahead and start working on getting it fixed. And because there are people that have bought that firearm under my recommendation. Now, yes, the gun is fixed. I mean, in fact, if you watch the video, I took the one and dropped it. And finally, I didn't get it to do it. And, but he, after doing the testing, he came and we dropped it and we did a bunch of stuff. And we had, excuse me, we had no problems. Sometimes situations like that can make something that's hidden and fix it. But those that have already purchased that, it's something that needs to be revealed so they can have theirs fixed. I know he opened it up. Yes, I still have the Honor Guards. I still like them. I didn't put it back in her car only because I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, you have something else in there now, but do you? Well, that's your responsibility to tell me.
I keep forgetting.
Here's the thing, with kids. That's like my son Seth the other day. He just bought him a new car, and we were looking at some things, and he had the Walther P22 that he was keeping in his car. He keeps his VP9 in his house. And I went, I mean, that's better than nothing. I said, but let's get you something a little better. And so, in fact, when we got home from the range, he was supposed to come in here. And I told him, I said, let's pick you out something to have. But no, I like the Honor Guard. I think it's a great firearm. And definitely now I have a lot of confidence in it. And the guys down there at Honor Defense are just great. And Gary used to work for Beretta, and he's just a super nice guy. So I have a confidence in the Honor Guard. So now that I've shamed her to tell me, she's going to knock me next. She's going to go. The thing is guys, when it comes to firearms, they're mechanical and things can happen. Things can go wrong. And, that's why we go out and we test them and we do our due diligence and we check them out. And I'll tell you, as much as anybody, I really take a huge amount of responsibility when it comes to firearms. And y'all like my pink cup? I'll tell you, it's just there's something in here that's getting me. It's probably no, it's not you. I know you've had a bath. Yeah, we've got about we have about 15 or so kids upstairs right now, and with my wife, and they had a big pool get together and had Taco Bell, and then they have a little Bible study upstairs. So I think that's what Lance is kind of barking about a little bit. But anyway. Again, that's what I've got. Let's see what we got. Okay. So I was going to say, if y'all have some questions, we will. If not, we'll wrap it up. Y'all are quiet tonight. Yes.
Enigma also asks.
Thank you for asking questions.
What do you say to people who say you are paranoid and or that nothing that bad will ever happen here in the U.S.?
Well, one thing is I understand why people feel that way. And this is the reason why I understand it. They're ignorant. I mean, they are. And the reason why they're ignorant is not because it's something that they choose to be, but when you think about it, let's say when you're driving your vehicle, I mean, how many times this year have I been in my vehicle without having an accident? I hadn't had an accident. When I get in my car, I'm not worried I'm going to have an accident. Oh my, usually that'll cause you to have an accident.
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried about it. I'm not worried about my house catching on fire. I don't sit around and worry about that. I don't worry about my house being broken into either. Because we have, I'm more concerned about that than I am my car insurance, but to be honest with you. But, we live day to day and we just live. We enjoy our lives. We go to work. We come home. We have our families. We go and do things on the weekend. We just live and everything just works. And that's the way it should be. That's the way we should have it. We should work together with each other. We should care about one another. Problems are going to happen. But we live in an evil world. We live in a world where things go wrong. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a guy. It was a guy walking through a parking lot, and he was on drugs. I think he'd smoked some pot, and there was some PCP laced in it. Didn't realize it, and he had kicked some cars. And he walked up to this one grocery cart with a 1-year-old baby in a car seat. The woman was getting ready to put the baby in. He grabbed the car seat and slammed it down onto the pavement with the baby in it. And it had the arm that blocked, and the baby ended up not getting hurt. And then the guy just walked off. And the police actually ended up getting him and, putting him in jail and all that stuff. But we live in a world where there's evil. There are evil things that happen. And, and then there are countries that actually are hell-bent because of ideology, because same thing with these liberal leftists that just you cannot talk to them. You can't. But what you do is, like for me, one thing I've always done is I've just spoken. This is sensible survival. I just put back a little bit. I try not to look like a complete, nut job, and that I make my whole life about it, but that I do things. And it's funny how many people have come over and said, it's just smart to have a little food put back. It's just smart maybe to have a firearm in your home. It's just smart just to do a few things, which a lot of times lead for them thinking and maybe taking more steps. But the people that just think you're nuts, they're just going to think you're nuts. I'll give you one more. I'll give you an example. We have a girl that was in our church. And, for me, I'm out there. People know what I do. So, they say, well, he's not a secret prepper. He's definitely out there where everybody knows it. And this one girl made a comment to another friend of ours who was her sister-in-law. And she said, Don, and this girl's known me for years. And she said, man, Don's kind of got off the deep end, hadn't he, with all this survival and prepping stuff. And so she actually was somewhat prepper minded, or at least, have some preparations. She came to me and said, I was talking to so-and-so, and she told me what she said. And I just laughed. I said, well, I don't know. And then this girl that said that about me started watching Doomsday Preppers. And so on Facebook, she just put a little post. She goes, I never really thought about it, but after watching Doomsday Preppers, it made me kind of think. She goes, and to be honest with you, I know where I'm going. And my wife, Shannon, got on there and said, don't even think about it. And, it's funny because people, a lot of times when they just start to think, and to me, Doomsday Preppers was kind of crazy. A lot of stuff out there that was like extreme, but it did make people think. And I think it was a big part of why a lot of people started thinking about prepping. So sometimes they may kind of look at you sideways and they may have comments, but a lot of times in their mind, they're thinking, you know what? There's something to it.
They look at you sideways until they need you.
Yeah. When something happens, when we had 85 up here blocked off and trucks were being burned on the freeway, a lot of people took notice and really started thinking, you know what? We never would have thought this would have happened 2 weeks ago, and now it's happening. So what can happen? We don't know. So be prepared.
Peter, here again. I thank you
Peter.
for attempting to answer me. Was it fair of me to ask Kentucky? Connecticut-based question. I would like to ask what load you recommend for use in a shotgun in a home.
Well, a lot of times people like to back it down. For me, I like number one buck. But it's according to what kind of area you live in. I mean, I live kind of out a little bit, but you need to be very mindful of where like your family is. And so, and that's one of the things we've talked about is if the alarm goes off and there's a possible situation, stay in place. My daughter, her thing is to get just right next door in with her brother. And they have guns. But they're to stay in place because the last thing I want is for them to come out, with their gun and then, end up getting shot. And so we have a certain protocol that we like to follow. It's really important to know those things. So that's just what I use. Some people will bump it down, but and really even in a close up and personal situation. I mean, birdshot is going to be, in a very urban situation where you could go through walls. But that's one of the things I like about shotguns in a populated area is that you're not going to get the distance you are going to get with an AR-15 or an AK. So that's just what I've traditionally used. Number one buck. It may be something that I probably should really take a look at because I've never really tested it out from that. Or maybe some turkey loads, man. Those things they'll put a hurting on your shoulder, and some Magnum loads. But again, you got to consider what it'll do through walls and things like that. But no, Peter, yes, I kind of got off on the Connecticut thing, but there are ways, even with these laws, we can still have the ability and to use the best to our ability for how we're limited. So, I just hate it, man, that you're having to go through it.
The Bug Killer asks, for Sarah Mack, have you checked out into Contributus? Gunstreamer uses this to allow creators to get funds from the public. I ask because some have quit giving to creators through Patreon. I have not.
We look at some different. I send her different things. I know she looks at different things.
Not that specifically.
Yeah, we lost quite a few patron members over the past year or so. But it's funny now we've kind of been very steady, and seems like a lot of guys are starting to come on, and I'll tell you guys, every dollar helps. Every dollar helps, and it's so needed. One thing I did this past week, I had a number of videos that I knew were going to be demonetized. And I told Sarah Mack when we were coming back from the range, and I just said, you see this CZ Evo 3, I really wasn't thinking about it, but I agreed to do it because it was new, and hey, it's exciting, and I really wanted it, and all that. That video will never be monetized because it's a pistol with a brace and it's got the extended magazine. It will never be monetized. On top of that, if I want to keep it, I have to pay for it. And so it's kind of like, what do we do? But here's the thing, though. I don't want to limit myself either. So Patreon allows me to do things like that. And to bring out really cool firearms and not just feel like that I just spent, 16 hours on a review and I've made nothing. In fact, I spent money. And so, guys, thank you. Thank you for that. And, it's funny, Gunstreamer, I think I mentioned this maybe last week. I got $7.65 from Gunstreamer, which I was surprised because I've just been putting them on there as a backup. So
more than zero.
Hey, we'll take it. But it helps, and, it's funny because a lot of people don't really realize cameras. I mean, we have 5 cameras and not including this one, not including our phone, not including the other things we use. Computers. I need to go buy a new computer. I need to go buy a new hard drive. My hard drive, I've got like a 16 terabyte hard drive that is full. And then I have small 2 and 3 terabyte hard drives that I have all this video that I try to keep backed up. And those videos, that's full. And so, I need to go out and spend, quite a bit of money. And, but it's worth it. It's what I got to do to continue our business. So you guys, I'm telling you, y'all are so instrumental in keeping us on YouTube. And again, the big thing about being on YouTube is we're reaching just your average Joe, just some guy that just happened, or Jane, just happens to come by, sees a gun video and goes, wow, and clicks on it. And from there, before long, they're like, you know what? These people are just average people. They're not mean. They're not malicious. And, they seem to be reasonable. And the next thing you know, they're like, you know what? I need a firearm. And then, then they step, into the protecting the Second Amendment. And we've got to stay on there. We've got to. So thank you for what you do. You know what? You can't carry it all. And I really do appreciate everything you do. And you know what? If you got to leave, and I've told people before, they've gotten in touch with me and said, man, we've got an illness. We've got medical bills. We just can't do it. I just lost my job. And they're apologizing to me because they have to leave. And I've told them, I've said, and I'll tell you this. You have helped me and Sarah Mack and the Suits channel to stay on YouTube. And that is not something that is something that's very honorable and that we are very grateful for. What you do in the future is wonderful. I mean, we need it to stay, but what you've already done has been awesome. And so thank you, because, it's kind of funny to me to say, hey, could y'all just support our YouTube channel? We go out and shoot guns. That's not what it's about. And it's all about putting firearm content out there and keeping it on YouTube so we can reach the masses. And that is the bottom line. So, if other platforms come up where we can help us too, we're going to take it if we can. Yes.
Enigma says, or ask, do you reload your ammo? I got, oh no. Too many comments. Do you reload your own ammo? I got into it in 2012 after Sandy Hook and have kept it up, but it seems to have dropped off for most people.
One thing that YouTube did was stop that kind of any kind of reloading, anything that you could show how to, which is what YouTube is all about. Is what's really sad is that they're really hitting the gun community very hard. I used to reload. I love reloading. I just love to sit down and I enjoy it. I remember when my wife and I first got married, I had a little Lee hand loader. It wasn't the one that you hit with a hammer. It was one that was like a press, little handheld press. And 38 Special was one of the big ones, and 30-30, and I don't know. It was just funny. And I would load it and I would squeeze it, and then I would take my little priming thing and I would load up all my brass and I'd clean my brass right at the kitchen table. And when my wife was in college, we just got married. We didn't have any money. And so it's just something that I love to do. And it's really inexpensive because brass is the most expensive part of shooting, and you're able to recycle that brass over and over. So it is an incredible thing, and I highly recommend anyone getting into that. Now, for me, because we do shoot guns and we do show a lot of reliability and things like that, for me to do reloads would actually be a disservice to these companies to show what their guns are really capable of, because sometimes the powder charges or whatever, the brass may be a little deformed or whatever, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is we have ammo sponsors. They send us ammo and they say, hey, if you'll just mention that you got it from us, it helps us, and that's we want to do that. And so HPR has done that, Freedom Munitions, but now Fiocchi, and so it gives us a standard ammunition formula that we can plug into our firearms. So that's one of the reasons. But yeah, even if I did, I couldn't show it on YouTube, which is just sad. But.
Peter says, sorry to ask another question.
Please do.
But what about people's ears in closed space, such as inside a home? I now have my 12 gauge loaded with low recoil. What do you think of those? A couple people were saying, he also said, I'm really concerned about ear protection inside a home. Chad says, I keep electronic earmuffs by my bed. Casper says, try some electronic earmuffs. And Nancy says, we keep earmuffs by the bed too.
I really like Howard Light electronic earmuffs. It's what she wears at the range. We have a couple of pair. I use plugs just because it helps me to do all the things that I do, especially with rifles and things. But what I love about electronic hearing protection is that you can turn it on and it actually amplifies the noise. So if you're in a situation at home, in a home defense situation, you're actually able to hear better than they can. And then when that firearm is shot, it baffles it, and then you're able to continue to hear. So yes, I think it's a great idea. I mean, for me, I should take it more seriously. A lot of people use suppressors because of that. That makes a great option as far as, in a home defense situation, keeping the noise level down. So I definitely recommend it. Do I do it? No, maybe I should. But the one thing about it is, though, unless you're just like firing off a lot of rounds, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of ringing for a little while, but I think electronic earmuffs is an excellent idea. And Peter, don't feel bad about asking questions. Thank you. That's why we're here.
Yep.
Now I hear kids coming down.
Yeah.
So if Lance starts going, just want to let you know ahead of time.
It's right at 10 o'clock.
It is.
Yes, it's 9:59.
Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up, and I'm gonna tell you, and we like to talk about some certain things, just to kind of keep things kind of going. But the big thing for us is you. We want to hear from you, and we just love it. I mean, this is to me one of the best times we have during the week. And then tomorrow we will be having Facebook Live from 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time or whatever it is. We'll be having Facebook Live. If you can't watch it, we do put the videos on there. And then this video, it's live, but when we're finished, we'll have it up on Patreon. So you can go to it and look. And if I missed some questions, if we missed it, because I know we were getting a lot of comments.
David MN says, my wife is next to me. Can you give her a shout out? Laura is a big fan.
Oh, hey, Laura. Yes. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with him watching me act crazy. But thank you. And David, thanks, because I know you are in the comments a lot. And I listen, guys, I see it. I know it. I really appreciate it. And we do get to see it. And I want to thank Sarah Mack, too, because she puts all this together for me. She gets everything set up, and she reminds me, she goes, okay, Dad, it's time. You've got like 15 minutes.
You've got 3 minutes.
I'm over there editing or doing something, and so, but yeah, thank you guys. We just love you guys. Y'all are, when I get into the comments here, I know that it's, you're my peeps, you're the guys and girls that just keep us rolling and keep us upbeat. And so, anyway, we just really appreciate it. But just hope that you enjoyed it, guys. Again, do not feel bad about asking questions. That's why we're here. This other can wait. We're on Facebook. I kind of like to keep a subject going. It's a little different. You guys, y'all have priority. I want to hang out with you guys. So anyway, we're going to sign off and get ready for the onslaught. But anyway, thanks again. Be strong. Be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.